Hey everybody, welcome to the Life Warrior podcast. This one I'm super excited about, and I'm always I'm always a little apprehensive about saying that kind of stuff when we're talking about these crazy moments in your life that are, traumatic. Uh because I do that sometimes. I'll go, "Oh, this is a great story." And I'm like, "Wait a minute. It's not really a great story." The outcome can be great, and the life warrior moments and the lessons can be great. It's not necessarily a great story. It's not something I would want anybody to ever go through. So, but I'm excited because we've been talking about this for a minute. And this is Deb, and Deb and I met on my TikTok live. And we just discussed this before we came on, that there are times when I don't want to do it. There are times when my head's not right and I don't want to do it. And the night that we met was one of those nights. And I made myself come in there, and she told me something. I'll let her tell it, that I didn't know, when she was about scrolling through. And so that's how this relationship started, and it's been awesome because uh, it was another life warrior story that blew me away. And but the most important part to me again is always the ending, and where you are now, and the strength you have now, and the happiness that you found doing what you're doing, so people can see that those super traumatic moments aren't the end of your life. Aren't it only is that if you decide it is. And so with that, um I'm gonna let Deb tell her story. um we've kind of tried to work some things out, right, of how we're gonna tell it. But uh again, I think I want her to tell her most important parts of the story, and line it up how she thinks it's the most important. So, Deb, got your RV, got the RV life going, and
Yeah,
you're not far from it. We tried to do this live, uh, in person,
yeah.
but work and all that kind of stuff is here. But you're here in the DFW area right now. Um,
Mhm.
but I know you've been living this RV life, and you can tell that part too for a minute,
Yeah.
and that's part of your happiness. And which is something that my wife and I have actually started talking more about, doing the same thing. And I know you're going to end up in Florida one of these days, and
Mm.
so that'll
Winter.
be, yeah, for the winter. So, but yeah, it's Deb, and so here we are. We met on TikTok, and I'll let you tell tell that however you need to tell it.
Yeah, so the whole reason it happened is because I was, scrolling TikTok and I heard you talking. Of course, I wasn't on there yet, and I heard you talking about health issues for yourself. And
Yeah.
then, I was like, I can relate to that. And I almost went to scroll again and I heard Life Warrior and I went right back and I was like, let me go in here and see what he's talking about. So
Yeah.
that's how that began. Um, because, we're not alone in this. Like there's so many of us that have stories. So yeah. So I'll begin, I guess, my story when I was 3. Um, uh, so it started with dad walked in on mom with someone else. Big fight ensued. He grabbed his stuff, took off, and then I think I was about almost 3, and she was with a boyfriend. I guess it's the same guy. I don't know. Um, and he got arrested because it was me and my 2 brothers, and one had a handprint on his back, and someone took notice. And then they took all 3 of us to the hospital and found out I had been raped by the
Wow.
boyfriend. I was 3. So,
Do you, can I ask, and man, this is crazy, being 3 years old,
Mhm.
do you, do you
I don't,
recollect that?
not
Do you
that one.
remember anything about that?
No,
So you didn't even really remember that happened. You were just
no.
yeah.
It's in my social service record. So, so he somehow gets released again. This is in,
Of
you know,
course.
70s. Um, and then
It
she
hasn't
goes,
changed.
right, right. And he goes, he's back again. Anyway, it's back and forth kind of thing happening. And so he gets arrested again. I think it was for fraud. Who knows? Um, so she ends up with the three of us. We're living in her car at Clearwater Beach down in Florida. So we had beachfront property. That was nice. So,
Yeah. Right.
obviously she's having trouble being 21 with three children. And so one day she takes us to her food stamp appointment, and we're sitting there. And of course, my younger brother is 8 months old and a carrier. And she waits about 10 minutes. She gets up, she walks up to the receptionist, and she says, I'm leaving, and I'm leaving them here, and walked out. And she just left us there. So,
And
of
you
course,
you were how old then?
3 years old.
You were 3. That's all
Yeah.
that happened. My gosh.
Yeah. So my I guess the receptionist is like, what do we do? So anyway, they tried us with the grandparents. Like I went with my grandfather and my brothers went with my grandmother. That lasted like 2 weeks. They both said it was too many mouths to feed because they had their own kids. So we ended up in a bunch of foster homes until I was 5. And then we get adopted by these parents that we thought were going to be, hey, they love us.
Right.
Not the case. They wanted boys for their daughter, but they didn't want me. But we were a package deal,
Yeah.
so I got the brunt end of the abuse. So, and that's something my brother struggles with, is because I've always been the protector. One was a baby, and one was very timid, so I was always the one who would come up. Um, so I ended up in the hospital for malnutrition and pneumonia for 5 months in an oxygen tent. I was 5 years old, so I'm guessing they were starving me. I don't know, but I remember them coming in all the time saying she can't leave yet. She's not, gain enough weight, that kind of thing. So, anyway, I get through all that. And for 6 years, we were just beaten, tortured, especially me because I'm the target. And I had, they would call me terrible names. I don't know if I can say this on here, but,
Well, it's a
my,
podcast. I mean,
yeah,
it's yeah, you
yeah.
say what you need to say.
So my name was the stupid little bitch. That's all they called me all the
Wow.
time. It was your idea. They would argue, literally argue. It was your idea to adopt a stupid little bitch. We just wanted the boys, that kind of thing. And just would, yeah, I'm starting to notice the older I get that I have these scars that I have a couple on my chin. I definitely have the one on my eye because I'll never forget this one time. I mean, there was many, but so he would punch me, and he came in one day. I don't know what I said or did, but I'm like 7, and he hit me so hard I went airborne, came down on the dresser, and it fractured my vertebrae, and
Wow.
just stuff like that. Um,
And they
I'll
still
never.
after that the hospital wasn't like
So
let's
she worked for HRS.
wow.
So no, they got away with a lot. And it does bother me because we would go to school and I'd have patches of hair missing. I'd be, having bruises, and I would always get that look from the teachers like, you poor little thing, but no one ever did anything, you know. Um, I remember the other time, I'll just say these two. Um, this other time was very traumatic for me. I don't know what ensued, what caused it. But Mama is what we called her, she grabbed my hair and beat my head into the terrazzo floor multiple times. And I felt like I was about to go out. And in the doorway, he's standing there watching. And he literally goes, okay, that's enough. Like I was about to go out. And the
Yeah.
moment, this is the kind of damage it does to you. In that moment, I said, oh, he does love me. He just saved
Wow.
my life. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? You don't, it's the same thing, I think, with domestic violence, of any kind. Those little glimmers of hope make you think, oh God, he didn't let me die, so he must love me. So that was something I had to work through for years, you know? Um, just a lot of abuse, lot. Every time, they were going to go after my brothers, I would jump in, say something stupid, so they would hit me instead, and I tell my brother to run, you know, things like that. It was chaotic. So anyway, they get divorced. He leaves, and they're both not right, right? So he leaves, and she gets a boyfriend. I'm 11 years old, and he decides he wants to be with me when she's at work. So one day she comes home from work, and she sees this, walks in, and she said, "You slut, you whore, you're trying to steal my boyfriend." I'm 11. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So, but it was the best thing that could happen. I mean, I always try and find the bright side, because she literally packed
Right.
all of our stuff, and we were put into a shelter home for 3 months in waiting to get placed into the children's home in Tampa.
Yeah.
So it freed us. I had the sacrifice, but it freed us from that craziness. And so I went into the children's home. This is all with my brothers. Um, and I actually liked it there, because I met other kids like me. And one of my best friends there was burnt 97% of his body. He was missing digits. And that was from his own father, you know,
Goodness.
and, and he had put him down on the driveway and, yeah, lit him on fire. So it was
Right.
just, yeah, there's a lot of us out there. And so when I was there, there were 62 other kids there, you know, so all of us had been through something. So I always wondered later, like, where'd they all go, because you want to know. So now I feel like I'm meeting people more like me, and understanding, that we're not alone in this. There are people like us. So, anyway, so for 3 years, we're at the children's home, and there's structure, and I thrived on that. It was like, oh, I have to do this to get to this level, so I get these rewards. I can do that. I'm not getting hit and beat and starved, and yeah, I can do that. We got a lot of benefits there, and I loved it. And
Yeah.
then they had a show on TV, on the news, called Wednesday's Child. So
Yeah.
yeah, you remember it? So they put us on there. Basically, these kids are looking for a home, you know, and did a whole segment. And then 6 months later, they're like, these kids are still looking for a home, you know.
Yeah.
So my mom now saw us on that both times, just happened to see us. And she said, God told her she needs to adopt us. My dad was like, what are we doing?
Right.
And they had 3 sons of their own. So they adopted us.
Oh,
And the thing is that they're great people, but I trusted no one.
yeah.
So I was, and I've always been, the guard dog for us. And my brothers wanted to be there. They trusted, and I just was wreaking havoc. I was wreaking havoc. I was going against it for 2 years. And so we decided it would be best at 17 that I move out on my own.
Yeah.
And I agreed. And so they helped me get into an apartment, and, I'm working fast food. I'm going to school. And then they kind of let me go. And of course, I lost my apartment being that young, you know. And so I ended up working 3 jobs, going to school, and no home. So,
Wow. So you were
but I was,
homeless, working
yeah,
3 jobs.
it wasn't that long, but it was like a wake up call. It was like,
Right.
we're going to have to figure something out here. So I slept at Burger King, because on Wednesday nights, because they had a porter cleaning the hood, and he would let me sleep on the booth, and I was working there, and I I heard this guy making everyone laugh. I'm up front, the cashier, and I would
Yeah.
hear everybody laughing, and I was like, who is that back there? And it was this guy Ron, and he was very shy, but when he spoke, everybody laughed. So I had heard he liked me, but wouldn't dare ask me out. He was like, she's out of my league. And I'm like, what? He doesn't know me. So on my 18th birthday, I walked up to him and I said, so you want to go out or what? And he said, sure.
Yeah.
So
That's all.
he begged his mom, because he knew my situation. He begged his mom for me to move in. And so she allowed it after him begging quite a bit. And so I moved in with him. And he turned out to be my husband.
Wow.
And yeah,
How great. So
yeah,
I
he
got,
was,
I got to tell you, I told Amanda this last time we talked, that there were times during her, because of my story, you know, the kids thing that messes me up, and there were times during hers, as I told her, I said, I'm telling you, I'm smiling, and I'm like, yeah, you know, but man, as I said, I'm in turmoil, like, and because I see you now as a woman, and you're, you know, but when you're telling me that, all I can see is a little girl. It's all I can see is like my daughter at that age and those ages, and
yeah,
man, it breaks my heart. I'm not trying to
no,
say
I
that,
get it.
you know, I'm just saying that it makes me more amazed at where you are and who you are,
Yeah,
because I can't even, I want to find those people and I want to hurt them myself. That's, you know, it's like
yeah,
those people don't deserve the air that they breathe on this planet. And so, but man, these things, like we talked about this earlier, like, does this make it worse when I go
right.
through my times? And the great thing is it makes me sad, makes me, but it does help, because I know you like telling your story. It's because it helps others, and I'm the
Yeah,
same way. But I'm again, I'm blown away by what you went through, and that where you are now, which is going to be awesome, because the story's not over, y'all.
no,
More
there's
to go.
more to
So
come.
yeah, but so because we talked a little bit about your husband, and you know, I know your story, and you've come on my uh, lives before and kind of told that, and um, I told my wife the other day that sometimes therapy, um, eh, whatever, that stuff doesn't help.
Yeah,
Sometimes what it takes is Ron or
yeah,
my wife, just going, hey, I got you. It's
yeah,
all good. And we're in this
yeah.
together. And so,
It was the first time in my whole life that I was taught what real love was
yeah,
and how to accept it, because I didn't know how to accept it.
yeah,
And then later, how to give it,
yeah,
because he was the one that taught me that.
yeah. At a time that you probably needed it the most. As my,
Absolutely.
um, so let me ask you this. So you told, you know, you started at 3, which is amazing that your story starts again. And I know you're right. There are so many out there that their stories start at the same time or younger. And um and you said some of them, but what during that, from the time 3 years old to um
18.
meeting Ron
Yeah.
at you know, and I know you said there, you know, these are some traumatic things that you remember about, you know, the incident with the floor, and him saying that's enough.
Yeah.
What was what were some of the most life changing moments from, you know, 3 to 18 that, like I said, that all of it impacted you, of course,
Yes.
because it was all traumatic. but were there any times during that, because we've talked about this whole, you got this fighter thing, like I don't
Mhm.
care what happens, you're not beating me.
Right.
I will not cave. I will not.
Yeah.
When did that thought cross your mind for the first time? Like,
I would say 9 years old is popping into my head because I saw myself as the only one that could protect my brothers. So during that time frame, I became the alpha female and I was the protector and I was willing to give my life. And there were times I thought they were going to take it. And it
yeah,
was okay with me, even at that young age. It was okay with me if they could be spared. You know,
man,
I knew it when I was 9. I knew I could take whatever they were giving me, because I was
yeah,
taking it all the time. It was that I didn't want anything more to happen to my brothers,
right,
you know? So at that time of my life, I became a warrior, you know,
yeah,
for my brothers and myself. I mean, I knew I could take a punch from a grown man, you know?
right. I mean, which you're just like, my God, the thought of knowing that oh yeah, I can't, like that, 9 years old as a
Yeah.
female. It's,
That
man,
didn't play any part in it that I was female. It was, I saw myself as the mother figure of
right.
my brothers,
Yeah,
you
you were
know?
just a warrior. You just went into that
Yeah.
life warrior mode of like, well,
Well,
this is life.
my daughter-in-law calls me Mama Bear because I have that in me,
Right.
you know?
Well, it's and to me, again, the story is awful, but that's one of those things that uh, there is a positive part that
Yeah.
it created that in you, and as bad as it was to have to go through it,
Yeah.
now others see it. Your daughter, they see it, and
Mhm.
it affects them in a positive manner. They understand and they know this Mama Bear. I mean,
Yep.
she's there. There's no cave. There's no quit. There's no surrender. There's
That's
no
right.
nothing for her. And as much as people don't know it, because I'm the same. It affects people. People see it and
Yeah.
they latch onto it, and so it affects people in a positive manner. What you've had to go through, and in that moment,
Yeah.
but having to realize that you are all right. I got to be a warrior now at 9.
Yep.
That's what it
I mean,
means, and understand.
nobody else was going to save us.
Right. And the kids, like you're a kid, and no kid should ever have to have that life process of going to even know what a warrior means
Right.
at 9 years old. You should be playing and going to school and having a good time and growing up and having these great experiences and all
Uh,
that. Instead, you're having to, and like the home you were in, like there were however many other kids that had to come to that same reality
yeah.
at a young age, like, and understand what that is.
Yeah.
Um, and so
It
it
was
blows my
preparing
mind.
me. It was preparing me for the other stuff that came that we'll talk
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
And man, that's hard for me to grasp too. I've had these conversations with people and maybe your opinion is different. But man, that whole thought of, okay, this was preparing me for that. Well, why
Mm.
then? Why did you have to go through that just to okay, preparing me for this later part of my life? And that's a hard concept for me to grasp.
Well,
Especially when we start talking about, because I feel like you and I told Amanda this too. You and I are going to end up having these conversations more, and I feel like more podcasts, even after your story,
yeah.
are going to come just because of experiences you have, and we can talk about faith and religion and and
Yeah.
all of that, and maybe even come on with Amanda and just we have these y'all's experiences and talk about that kind of stuff. But does that not make you does that make you angry
It used
that
to. It
yeah
used to. It was always, I don't understand. I didn't do anything to
uh,
deserve this and all that stuff until I have, hindsight, until you look back and go, oh, that's why.
yeah yeah
Because now, not only is my life amazing, but I've done I've done the shadow work is what they call it, right? And I understand um, that really everything comes down to perspective and choice, right? So
okay.
you can perceive that your life was horrible and live in it,
Yeah.
or you can perceive that you made it through. You're a badass. You made it through,
Yeah.
and now you can make your life by choice a different way. You can choose a better life. We
Yeah.
literally can choose and perceive it differently, right? So I'll give you an analogy that I have thought about. Imagine someone throws you into a dark room, your life, right? Your terrible life. You're in this dark room, can't see a thing, and you're tripping over stuff and you hear noises and it's scary, it's terrifying. You break your toe, you bash your head, and then you realize you have a light and you turn that light on and you look around and you're like, oh, it's just a couch. I just didn't know which way to go.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, it's a yeah.
Yeah. I have a
I've,
light in me.
yeah, there's a yeah. Um, man, um, it's that kind of stuff. That's why I love doing this
Yeah.
because that's something I've never heard before that I will now carry and use from
Yeah.
now on. Because
You
great analogy.
flip that light on, you look around, you're like, oh, this isn't so scary anymore. And now you
You
know how
know,
to open the door.
yeah. So Texas girl that's on the lives and stuff with us all the time.
Yeah.
Uh, she sent me something the other day that said those that are willing
To
to
face their
explore
shadows.
their shadows, right? And I this was a comment that it made me have a conversation with my wife about this because like I told you, I've been for the last 4 days or so not been great, not been in my best,
Yeah.
and um, but it was that made me remember like when I was in the absolute worst days, the darkest, what I call the darkest days where I didn't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
Um, that's I now realize that's where the best parts of me came from. The parts that were like, wait a minute, you're not a
Yeah.
quitter. You don't give up. You don't do any of that. And so that's it. That's you talk about the shadows, the shadow work, and being in
Yep.
the dark room. It all makes sense. So, well, I think that's a great quote to end on
Yeah.
with this first episode.
Yeah.
Um, because I know your story, and so everybody else is going to see that there is light after. There
Yeah.
is a light. You figure it out, and Ron helped you turn that light on,
Yeah.
and but even that, there's still more traumatic stuff to go, and
Oh yeah.
so uh, man,
So I'll be 55 on Wednesday, right? And
oh wow,
so
birthday early.
we've only gotten to age 18, and I would say my life didn't really change until I was what, 48.
There you
So
go. That's yeah. It's like I know everybody else out there doesn't know, and so it blows me away. Again, like here you are, and
yeah.
I've told this to my wife. I'm like, I see her, even though this is really the first time we've done this.
Hmm.
Your personality, it's like I know she's always smiling.
Yeah.
She's it's like you have this personality, this happiness that you wouldn't ever know that if you
Right.
passed you in the street, you would have no idea. And that to me is an important part of this Life Warrior culture that I'm hoping to build, is that, you
Yeah.
know, that we see each other you're not just passing each other in the street. Okay, yeah, she's smiling, she's happy, and maybe you see you're wearing a Life Warrior shirt, or
Yeah.
you see somebody wearing a hat, and people can stop and go, hey, what does that mean to you? Like, is that, and you can have these conversations like that. Like, this smile wasn't
Right.
always there.
It was earned.
Yeah. And um, so I appreciate you coming on today and doing this. And
And we'll
again,
do, yeah.
like I told you before, if we came on, there's times when I don't want to do stuff. And when I do it, it changes the whole day. I'll tell you that even though the story's traumatic, it changed my day today.
Yeah, you tend to get, it's those moments where you really are just struggling and you do it anyway, and then you're really rewarded for it, you know?
Well, and I'll say this, and it's as a compliment to you. It's your personality and the way you deliver your message. I'm like, man, it's so traumatic, but
Yeah.
she's happy, and it's a
Yeah.
you just don't see that very often, and so I'll
Right.
tell you that it helped me out. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on and doing this and telling part one to this story, and
Well, thank you.
we will continue it down the road. I have a feeling my dog's fixing to start barking because my son's fixing to come in the door, and we'll see.
Yeah.
He's quiet now, but we'll see.
Well, I appreciate
But,
you
all
having
right.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, no, let's we'll figure out another time
Okay.
to do it again and get this second part of the story out, and third or fourth or fifth or
Well,
however long this goes.
it won't be
And
that
then
many,
again,
but
well, and then again, I feel like there's some more great conversations to be had other than just this,
yes.
about, other things. And so, I look forward to doing all that. So thanks for
Yeah.
coming on.
Thank you.
Y'all go watch this podcast. I can't wait for y'all to hear the rest of the story. And, man, again, blown away. So, all right, y'all have a good day. And remember, like I always say, y'all go do Life Warrior shit. Thank y'all.
Thank you.